impose Sharia law by force?
Well, I think eventually it will be imposed by force. There's only 4 ways in which the Sharia can come. One of them by the people to adopt it here. One of them by a coup of some type, a military coup. One of them by if there was a conflict, for example, like in Bosnia, in Iraq, etc. And fourthly, if there was an Islamic state somewhere else with a foreign policy to annex Britain to it. There's no other way that it can come. So I think there will eventually be some kind of cesarean operation, but certainly the child is nearly ready to be delivered.
Okay, well, you know, there are Muslims around the world who after 9/11 and the 7/7 bombings felt like, okay, this needed to be done to kind of wake the rest of the world up to injustices that were happening against the Muslim people as a whole. What are your views on those situations, the 9/11, 7/7 bombings? Do you think it takes something like that to wake up the rest of the world? And well, can you justify those
Sanyya,
events?
when the buildings were falling on Muslim heads in Sabra and Shatila, in Palestine, in Iraq, and in Sudan, in Afghanistan, etc. In 1998, the British and the Americans bombed Sudan and Afghanistan, unilaterally, without any kind of authority from anybody. And many people died under the rubble. And, and so many Muslims have died around the world because of the British and the American foreign policy. And yet, nobody ever has a minute's silence for any of them. But as soon as the war is taken to their own backyard, and the people are dying, for example, in London or Spain or in America, people want to have a minute's silence. Sheikh Osama bin Laden said something, I think, which has a resounding effect on all Muslims. Why is it that the blood of Muslims is not real blood, and only the blood of the non-Muslims seems to be real? Right. Meaning nobody does body counts. Madeleine Albright said we don't do body counts. And this is the kind of language we hear from the other side. So ultimately I think that in war, people do kill each other, and they have operations. In the first few weeks in Iraq, I think they killed over 100,000 people, the British and the Americans, and yet nobody did any body counts. Nobody says, oh, where are the innocent people? But even if one American or British soldier dies, suddenly they want to have a parade, they want everyone to condemn, the people who are killing them. I think there's some very perverse understanding of reality.
I agree with you on that. I understand what you're saying there, and I see how that can be completely infuriating. You never really get the full body count when it's Muslims dying in the Middle East.
Let me ask you a question, Sanyya. In the Second World War, when Germany bombed London, did London send a box of chocolates and a bunch of flowers in return, or did they bomb them in return?
That's right. Okay.
They bombed them in return.
Right.
So what do you expect the Muslims in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Palestine, in Kashmir, etc. to do? Especially if the soldiers come from Britain and America. We live here under a covenant of security. I do not target the wealth and the life of the people with whom I live. But I cannot speak for my brothers overseas who may send someone here, who may get a job, for example, in the Home Office, and the next thing you know, he's buying a rucksack and he's on the London Underground. That is because of the foreign policy of the British.
The English Defence League says that if you want to follow your religion and you want to be a practicing Muslim or a Hindu or a Sikh, do it in your own house. Don't impose it on the wider society.
Let them say whatever they want. You know and I know that they're very racist. Islam transcends racism and nationality. You don't find that the Muslims are, Sudanese and Bengali, Pakistani, and they believe that they are better because of their race. The English Defence League and the British National Party, they are very racist and nationalistic, whereas we believe that Islam is for the whole of mankind. The Prophet is a mercy for the whole of mankind. Everyone can adopt the Sharia as a way of life. There's nothing wrong with that.
Dr. Naseem, we're cutting it. We're finished on the next minute. Dr. Naseem, do you think there's going to ever be a kind of a middle ground here? Do you think that that everybody will come on board and hear what Anjum is saying and saying, actually, you know what, that makes complete sense?
May I go back to the 9/11 that you raised?
Sure, yes.
Okay. Now, a few years ago, there was a poll in New York about 9/11, and 80% of the population of New York did not believe in the official version. And the man who was the chief proponent of 9/11, George W. Bush, ended up as the most hated president in the history of America. We have been demanding an independent public inquiry about 9/11, an independent public inquiry about 7/7, because the explanations they have given do not make sense. They are so contradictory that for the sake of sensibility and justice in this country and peace in this country and harmony in this country, it is imperative that we must have an open public inquiry about 7/7.
So do you think that there will be peace in this country if we adopt Sharia law?
Now, that is a separate question. Yes, Sharia law offers the best solution to the man's problem. But it is up to people whether they accept it or not. It is our duty to propagate the virtues of Islamic law or Islamic thinking, especially, for example, I'm involved in monetary reform. this present monetary system is a fraud. And we have joined hands with all those right-minded people who were against the monetary system. Recently, I think the last week, there was a meeting in the House of in the Parliament where people corrected, and they were voicing their first time in the Parliament their concern about the present monetary system.
So if you do think that there is a place in, you know, modern British society for Sharia law, are you on board with Anjum's group then, and
There is
would you
certainly
show
a place
solidarity
for
there?
dialogue. There is certainly a place for conveyance, but it is not a demand for imposition of a law which people do not accept.
You're watching Broken Silence. I'm Sanyya Gardez. Today's question was, is there a place for Sharia law in today's British society? And it's been one heated conversation, and I guess we're going to have to agree to disagree because there hasn't been really a real resolution to this question. I'll be back next week, same time, same place.